The school hallways were quiet after dark, the kind of silence that hummed like a memory. The cleaning staff had already gone home, leaving behind the faint scent of disinfectant and echoing footsteps. But for Arthur Hayes, the old janitor, nights like this were his peace. He liked the stillness, the way the world stopped expecting anything from him. He moved slowly, mop in one hand, humming an old tune he barely remembered the lyrics to. His knees ached, his back complained, and his hands were rough from years of work. But Arthur never minded. The school wasn't just a building to him, it was his second home. After all, he'd spent more time polishing its floors than he ever had his own life. It was almost midnight when he first heard it, the soft, trembling notes of a piano drifting through the hallway. He froze. At first, he thought it was the wind, maybe a door creaking, or the old pipes moaning again. But then came a melody, hesitant, emotional, alive. Someone was playing. Arthur followed the sound down the corridor, his mop bucket squeaking behind him. The music grew stronger, delicate at first, then powerful, full of something raw and aching. It came from the auditorium, a place usually locked after hours. He pushed the heavy doors open just enough to peek inside. There, under the single spotlight on stage, sat a young girl, maybe 16, in her school uniform. Her long brown hair was tied in a loose braid, her fingers dancing across the piano keys like they belonged there. But what struck Arthur most wasn't her talent. It was her sadness. She played like she was trying not to cry. Arthur stood frozen in the shadows, listening. Each note seemed to tell a story of pain, hope, and something he couldn't quite name. It wasn't just music. It was a confession. When she finished, the silence that followed was almost holy. She sat there for a long time, staring at the keys, then whispered to herself, "I wish you could hear me, Dad." Arthur's chest tightened. He took a slow step back, careful not to make a sound. But as fate would have it, his mop bucket bumped the door with a soft clang. The girl gasped and turned. "Who's there?" Arthur stepped into the light, awkwardly raising a hand. "Sorry, miss. Didn't mean to scare you. I was just finishing up cleaning." Her expression softened with embarrassment. "Oh no, it's okay. I just thought I was alone." He smiled kindly. "You and me both." She looked down, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I come here sometimes after hours. The music room's too noisy during the day." Arthur nodded. "That was beautiful what you played. Reminded me of something old, something good." A faint smile tugged at her lips. "Thanks. It's a piece I'm writing for my dad. He used to be a musician before." She stopped, her voice faltering. "Before he passed away." Arthur's heart ached at the softness in her tone. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. He'd be proud, you know. Real proud." She looked up, her eyes shining under the dim light. "You think so?" Arthur nodded. "I know so." As she packed her sheet music, he noticed the pages. Each one handwritten, edges smudged, some covered in small tear stains. "You wrote all that?" he asked. She nodded. "Yeah, but I don't think it's good enough for anyone to hear yet." Arthur smiled faintly. "Sometimes, the best things in life start out when no one's listening." The girl chuckled softly, glancing at him. "You talk like someone who's seen a lot." "Maybe," he said, "but mostly I've seen what people hide." She smiled again, a real one this time. "Good night, Mr. Hayes." He blinked, surprised. "You know my name?" She laughed lightly. "Everyone knows the janitor's name. You're the one who fixes everything around here." Arthur grinned as she walked out into the hall, leaving the faint scent of lavender and hope in her wake. He stood there long after she left, staring at the piano. Then, with a sigh, he sat down and pressed one key, just one. It echoed softly through the empty room. For the first time in years, Arthur Hayes didn't feel invisible. The next night, Arthur tried to tell himself it was none of his business. He was just the janitor. He cleaned, locked up, went home, and repeated the same quiet routine every day. But as he pushed his mop across the marble hallway, his ears stayed tuned, waiting for that sound again. The piano. At first, there was only silence, the kind that settles over a school after hours. Heavy, still, almost sacred. Then, just as he was finishing up near the cafeteria, it started. Soft, hesitant. A melody so fragile it could have shattered under its own sadness. Arthur smiled faintly. There she is. He left his cart by the wall and followed the sound once more, his footsteps careful against the polished floors. When he reached the auditorium, the door was cracked open just like before. The same golden light spilled through. The same girl sat at the piano, head bent, fingers trembling slightly as they moved across the keys. This time, though, she wasn't alone. Another girl, younger, maybe 10, sat cross-legged beside the stage, humming along. Her voice was small, pure, almost angelic. The two of them together made the air shimmer. Arthur leaned against the wall, quietly listening. The older girl's music told stories, pain and hope, grief and forgiveness, while the little one's voice wrapped around it like sunlight through rain. When they finished, the smaller girl clapped. "That was so good, Lily." The pianist, Lily, Arthur realized, smiled faintly. "You think Dad would have liked it?" The younger one nodded eagerly. "He would have cried, but like, happy crying." Arthur felt something tighten in his chest. He'd never had kids of his own. Never had someone who'd sit beside him like that, full of faith and love. He didn't mean to make a sound, but the floor creaked beneath his shoe. Lily froze. "Is someone there?" Arthur cleared his throat and stepped forward slowly. "Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. I was just listening." The little girl's eyes widened. "You're the janitor." Arthur chuckled. "Guilty as charged." Lily smiled faintly. "Hi, Mr. Hayes." He nodded. "Evening, Miss Lily. Didn't expect an audience tonight." The younger girl grinned. "I'm Emma. I'm her sister." Arthur smiled at her. "You've got a beautiful voice, Emma." "You both do." The girls exchanged a look, and Lily said quietly, "We come here sometimes after Mom works late. It's quiet. Helps me think." Arthur nodded. He knew that feeling well. The quiet had been his best friend for years. "Music helps fill the empty parts," he said. "Makes things make sense again." Lily's eyes softened. "You get it." He smiled. "More than you think." Emma tilted her head. "Do you play, Mr. Hayes?" Arthur chuckled. "Not in a long time, sweetheart. But I used to." Lily looked surprised. "You did?" He nodded slowly, his gaze distant. "When I was younger. Piano like you. My mom taught me before she passed." She smiled sadly. "That's beautiful." He shrugged. "Life happens. Sometimes we forget the things that make us feel alive." Lily's expression shifted, something between curiosity and sadness. "You should play again. Maybe tomorrow night." Arthur blinked, caught off guard. "Oh, I don't know if I could keep up with you two." Emma giggled. "You can be our third member." Lily nudged her sister gently. "Don't pressure him." Arthur laughed softly. "It's okay. I'll think about it." They chatted a bit longer before leaving. Lily carrying her sheet music close to her chest, Emma skipping ahead, singing softly. When the auditorium door closed behind them, Arthur sat down at the piano again. His hands hovered over the keys, unsure, trembling. It had been almost 30 years since he'd played. But muscle memory is a strange kind of magic. He pressed one key, then another. Then, slowly, the melody returned, the same one his mother had taught him when life was still kind. In the silence that followed, he smiled to himself. For the first time in decades, Arthur Hayes didn't feel like a janitor. He felt like a musician rediscovering the part of himself he'd buried long ago. The next evening, the school was wrapped in its usual hush. But to Arthur, it didn't feel empty anymore. Every creak, every hum of the lights, every echo down the halls carried a promise. the kind that only comes from having something, or someone, to look forward to. He tried to act casual as he finished mopping near the main office, but his eyes kept drifting toward the clock. 8:45 p.m. The same time Lily and Emma had shown up the night before. He told himself he was just making sure the auditorium stayed tidy. That's what a good janitor did, after all. But deep down he knew he was waiting for the sound. And right on time it came. Soft, careful, uncertain. A melody testing the dark. Arthur smiled. He walked quietly toward the sound, and when he reached the doors, he didn't hide this time. He stepped right inside. Lily looked up mid-song, startled, then smiled. "You came." Arthur grinned. "Told you I'd think about it." "I did. A lot." Emma clapped her hands from the front row. "Mr. Hayes is gonna play with us." Arthur chuckled. "I said I'd try, little miss. Haven't played in forever." Lily slid over on the piano bench, patting the spot beside her. "There's always room for one more." For a long moment Arthur hesitated. His hands were rough from years of work, his knuckles stiff with age. He wasn't sure they even remembered how to move like they used to. But when he sat down beside Lily and placed his fingers on the keys, something familiar stirred inside him. A warmth he hadn't felt since his youth. "What are we playing?" he asked quietly. Lily handed him one of her pages, handwritten with pencil and love. "It's something I've been writing. I call it For Dad." Arthur studied the notes. It wasn't perfect, not by theory or tempo, but it had soul. Every note spoke from her heart, and that was something no teacher could teach. He nodded slowly. "All right, let's see if I can keep up." The first few notes were shaky, his fingers stiff, out of rhythm, but Lily matched him with patience, adjusting to his timing instead of correcting it. Emma hummed along softly, her voice weaving around the melody like a silver thread. Little by little, the music took shape. 2 generations, 1 piano, 1 song, blending pain, love, and longing into something that felt like healing. When they finished, none of them spoke for a while. The sound lingered in the room, echoing off the walls as if refusing to fade. Lily turned toward him, eyes shining. "You still remember how?" Arthur laughed softly. "Guess some things don't rust." Emma clapped her hands. "That was so good. You should play it at the recital next week." Lily's face fell slightly. "I'm not doing the recital, Em." "What?" "But you promised." Arthur looked between them. "Recital." Lily sighed. "It's for the spring showcase. Everyone performs something. I used to sign up every year when my dad was alive. But after he passed, I stopped. I don't think I could play in front of people again." Arthur's heart sank. He could see it in her eyes, the same fear he'd lived with for decades. The fear of being seen, of failing again, of facing the ghosts that haunted the music. He leaned forward, his voice gentle. "Lily, can I tell you something?" She nodded. "When I was your age, I wanted to be a pianist too. Played at my church every Sunday. Thought I'd make something of it. But when my mom got sick, I dropped out of school and took the first job I could. Told myself it was too late to dream again." She looked at him, sympathy softening her features. He smiled faintly. "But sitting here with you two tonight, it feels like I got a second chance." Lily blinked back tears. "You think I should play again?" Arthur nodded. "Not for the crowd. Not for applause. For your dad. For you." Emma beamed. "You have to do it, Lily." The older sister laughed, shaking her head. "You two are impossible." Arthur grinned. "Takes one to know one." Lily sighed, a smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "All right, but only if you promise to be there." Arthur's eyes softened. "Front row." They played one more time before leaving that night, the same melody, stronger now, fuller. And when Arthur locked up the auditorium, The echo of their song followed him down the hallway like a whisper from the past. He didn't know it yet, but that simple promise, front row, was about to change everything for both of them. The week flew by faster than Arthur expected. The school buzzed with nervous energy as the annual spring recital approached. Students carried instruments through the halls, music sheets tucked under their arms, laughter echoing around every corner. For Arthur Hayes, the old janitor who had spent decades cleaning those very floors, the excitement felt contagious, almost like he was part of something again. Every evening that week, Lily, Emma, and Arthur met secretly in the auditorium. Lily practiced the piano, Arthur sat nearby offering quiet encouragement, and Emma twirled in the aisles pretending to be a dancer in the performance. Their music filled the empty school with something it hadn't had in years: warmth. But the night before the recital, Lily grew distant. She played slower, made more mistakes, and at one point stopped altogether. Arthur noticed immediately. "You okay, sweetheart?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "I don't think I can do it." He frowned gently. "You've been practicing all week. You've got this." Lily stared down at the keys. "You don't get it. When I sit there in front of people, my hands shake. My chest tightens. I keep thinking about that last recital, the one before my dad died. I missed a note halfway through, and afterward, he told me it was perfect anyway. I didn't believe him, and then he was gone. I never played again." Arthur's heart ached. He pulled a chair closer and sat beside her. "Lily," he said softly, "your dad didn't love your music because it was perfect. He loved it because it was yours." She blinked back tears. "But what if I mess up again?" Arthur smiled faintly. "Then you'll keep going. That's what music and life are about. You don't stop just because you hit a wrong note." For a moment, the only sound was the quiet hum of the old school lights. Then Lily whispered, "Will you still be there if I mess up?" He nodded. "Front row, remember?" The next evening, the auditorium was filled with parents, students, and teachers. The stage glowed under warm lights, and the air buzzed with nervous chatter. Arthur had dressed as best as he could. Clean shirt, combed hair, the faint scent of old cologne he hadn't used in years. He even polished his shoes that morning. He took his seat in the front row, clutching a small gift wrapped in tissue paper. Something he'd kept for years but never had a reason to give anyone. His mother's silver locket, engraved with a tiny music note. Backstage, Lily stood beside the curtain, clutching her sheet music. Her fingers trembled slightly, her breath uneven. She peeked out into the audience and spotted Arthur immediately. He sat up straight when their eyes met, giving her a small thumbs up and that warm, steady smile she'd come to depend on. Emma stood beside her sister, whispering, "You got this. Dad's listening. So is Mr. Hayes." Lily nodded, took a deep breath, and stepped onto the stage. The murmurs died down as she sat at the piano. The spotlight fell softly across her face. For a heartbeat, everything went still, the kind of stillness that separates fear from courage. Then she began to play. The first few notes trembled, fragile as glass. But with each measure, her confidence grew. The melody poured out of her. Tender, heartbreaking, alive. Every emotion she had buried since her father's death came out through her fingers. The entire audience seemed to fade away, leaving only her and the song. Arthur sat there, tears welling in his tired eyes. The music was raw and unpolished, but it was real. It reminded him of his mother, of his own lost dreams, and of something he'd nearly forgotten: the power of being seen. Halfway through, Lily paused. Her hand hovered over the next chord, and for a moment, she faltered. The crowd held its breath. Then she looked toward the front row. Arthur smiled. Just one nod, steady, patient, full of belief. Lily took a deep breath and continued. The notes soared higher, brighter, until the entire hall seemed to glow. When she finished, silence filled the room. Not the empty kind, but the kind that comes when hearts are too full for words. Then came the applause. Loud, thunderous, unstoppable. Lily stood, tears in her eyes, bowing shyly. She looked toward Arthur again. He was clapping, his eyes shining with pride. The kind of pride she hadn't seen in years. After the show, she rushed off stage straight to him. "You came," she said breathlessly. Arthur chuckled, holding up the program. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." She smiled through tears. "I didn't mess up." He grinned. "You didn't just play a song, Lily. You told a story. And it changed mine." Then he handed her the small silver locket. "For when you forget how brave you are." She opened it and saw the engraving, the small music note, shining under the lobby lights. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Arthur smiled softly. "It belonged to my mother. I think she'd want you to have it." Tears slipped down her cheeks as she hugged him tightly. "Thank you for everything." And for the first time in a long, long while, Arthur Hayes felt something he thought was gone forever: purpose. The days following the recital felt like sunlight after a long storm. Every hallway in the school carried a little more laughter, a little more lightness. Teachers still talked about Lily's performance, the way her song had made even the stern principal wipe his eyes. To everyone else, it was a touching student moment. But for Arthur Hayes, it was something far deeper. It was redemption. That Monday morning, as he wheeled his mop bucket through the East Wing, he passed the music room and paused. The door was half open, the piano cover still pulled back from the recital. Sunlight poured through the windows, landing directly on the keys. Something about it felt sacred. He stepped inside quietly, the scent of old wood polish and chalk dust filling the air. On the piano, tucked between 2 pages of Lily's sheet music, was an envelope with his name on it. Mr. Hayes. His heart stuttered. He wiped his hands on his work shirt before picking it up, the paper soft and slightly wrinkled. He opened it carefully. Inside was a short, handwritten letter, in Lily's neat, careful handwriting. "Dear Mr. Hayes, I don't really know how to say thank you the right way, so I'll just say it simply: you changed everything. Before I met you, music hurt. It reminded me of loss, of Dad, of things that used to be good. I didn't think I could love it again. But you showed me that music doesn't belong to pain. It belongs to hope. When you played beside me that night, it felt like my dad was right there, listening. I think he was proud of both of us. You taught me that broken things still make beautiful sounds. That second chances can come from the most unexpected people. Even a kind old janitor who used to play piano. I'm going to keep playing, Mr. Hayes. And one day I'll teach someone the way you taught me. With all my heart, Lily." Arthur sat down slowly on the piano bench, the letter trembling in his calloused hands. His throat tightened as he read it again and again, each word hitting him like a note he never thought he'd hear. For years, he'd walked these halls invisible. Just another man pushing a mop, fading into the background of everyone else's story. But this was proof that his life had left a mark. He looked at the piano, smiled, and whispered, "Guess I found my song again." That afternoon, when Lily and Emma came by to thank him again, they found the music room unlocked. The piano cover was off, the keys dusted clean. On the stand sat a single sheet of paper, Arthur's handwriting this time. It read, "For Lily and Emma, never stop playing. You're the reason I remembered who I was." Beneath the note was his old photograph, a younger Arthur, standing beside a piano with his mother, both smiling proudly. Lily ran her fingers over the photo, tears gathering in her eyes. "He left it for us?" she whispered. Emma asked softly, "Where is he?" Lily looked toward the door, the faint sound of a mop bucket echoing faintly down the hall. She smiled through her tears. Cleaning somewhere else, I guess. Like he always does. Leaving things better than he found them. That evening, as the school emptied, Arthur walked out into the fading sunset. His old jacket slung over his shoulder, the spring air cool against his face. He paused by the gate, listening to the faint echoes of a piano drifting from inside. Lily's song, her laughter, Emma's humming. He smiled. A deep, quiet smile that only comes when a man realizes his story has finally come full circle. The world didn't know his name, but that didn't matter. Somewhere inside that building, two little girls would always remember him, not as the janitor, but as the man who believed in their song. And for Arthur Hayes that was more than enough.